Good morning, everyone, and welcome into Wake and Take. It's your boy Jason, and we've got some football to talk about today. Today, I'm joined by the specialist of special guests, Theo Gremminger, as we break down a lot of the recent news from this weekend, break down some draft stuff, break down some free agency stuff, and of course, as you can tell by the title, we're talking Justin Fields and Russell Wilson. It's going to be a good one. Go ahead, pull out your coffee, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Theo! How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. I'm especially caffeinated this morning, getting ready for Wake and Take, getting after it. Lot to talk about, Jason. It's been like a really it feels like it's been a nonstop ride since we had the combine all the way through free agency. It's just been nothing but information. We love this time of year.
And it makes our job a lot easier, doesn't it?
100%. The show sheets are different. You actually have stuff to talk about. You're not like getting every single person's like pre-combine takes on every single rookie and speculating on free agency. I mean, it's every single day we get like a news dump. It seems something's going to happen today as well. Mike Williams might sign with somebody today.
Yeah, there you go. That's the perfect name to name drop right there. What will happen with Mike Williams today, right? And then tomorrow, Tom Brady will unretire, and so much more will just happen this offseason. It has been a wild ride. I'm very excited to have you join me, as this weekend in particular, probably my favorite story of the entire this entire news cycle has broken. So we'll talk about that, the Justin Fields stuff. But first, I've got to just give, his flowers to Aaron Donald, as he did announce his retirement this weekend. Obviously, don't have to go too far into it. We know he's an incredible player. We know he's going to be missed. Super Bowl champion, 3-time defensive NFL player of the year, the defensive rookie of the year his rookie season, 8-time first-time All-Pro, and 10 Pro Bowls. Just a great career for him. Got to play the applause sounder. Anything for Aaron Donald? You want to wish him the best?
I mean, incredibly dominant player. Changed the way you think of defensive tackles and kind of how they look. Guy looks like a middle linebacker all rocked up, and played with like a certain quickness that was like unseen in the defensive tackle position. But Jason, I want all of the good defensive players to retire. Just get the hell out of there. Let's get some high scoring games. I'm not looking at that side of the ball. I keep it real. I'm an offensive minded guy when I watch NFL football. I want my fantasy teams to score as many points as possible and not worry about guys like Aaron Donald.
Yeah, I just don't know why Aaron Donald couldn't play fullback. That would have been a lot more fun for our fantasy teams.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it was a lot of like your Sunday gets ruined because Aaron Donald blows up your quarterback on a key, trip to the red zone or something like that. So, I hope you enjoy retirement, Aaron Donald. One of the best.
One of the best, man. Wish him the best in his retirement. Very happy to not have to, think about my running back playing against Aaron Donald on a week-to-week basis when I'm setting my lineups. So congratulations to him. Let's move on to the big story. I have been wrong on this all off season. This has been probably my biggest L. I have been a Justin Fields defender. I wanted the Falcons to get him. Now he's going to the Pittsburgh Steelers, traded for a 6th-round pick that could turn into a 4th depending on how many snaps he plays. Right now, it is reported that Russell Wilson has the starting job. It's not even a competition. But Theo, when you saw this trade, what did you think?
The timing that the Bears had on the trade was really poor.
Yes.
Like it was last season was essentially a wasted year. You could say that the Bears got the 9th pick on their own kind of futility, whatever. But Justin Fields' trade market was higher last offseason. I realize there's people that say hindsight's 2020 because they never could have anticipated Carolina finishing as the worst team in football when they made that trade. That wasn't necessarily what they were going to do. But if you don't believe in a quarterback long term and you can get something better than that out of them, I mean, its 6th-round pick is nothing. The market's basically telling you that Justin Fields is not only valued like a backup, he's valued like kind of a low-end backup. Look at what Sam Howell was traded for. And then look at what Justin Fields was traded for. It's one of the biggest disconnects I've ever seen in terms of how real football people view someone and how we view Justin Fields from the fantasy lens. it's unbelievable. Fantasy football wise, anytime he starts, he's a valuable player to us because he is able to run for a lot of yards and he's able to make things happen. But in terms of real NFL football, the guy's 10-28 as a starter. He gets sacked all the time. He's a drive killer at times. It's just he's a hard player to see kind of bouncing back from this. Now, Russell Wilson is not perfect, and I do think that there's a window that if Pittsburgh's losing, they could go to Justin Fields. But by all accounts, Pittsburgh's a smart organization, and they just paid a 6th-round pick for a backup quarterback who's young and has 40 starts under his belt. That's pretty much all it is. It's Russell Wilson's the starter. Mike Tomlin clarified that. Like right as Justin Fields was traded, Mike Tomlin is clarifying who's the starter is. So like it's pretty cut and dry. It's a terrible time for people that held on Justin Fields. It's an even worse time for people that took Justin Fields early in these underdog best ball drafts because Justin Fields was still like a high-end QB2, and there's a lot of 2 QB builds out there that are done right now.
Yeah, no, I'm not someone that took him early in the startup, but I did trade for Justin Fields last season, and my quarterback room is in disarray, the team that I have him, and I'm honestly panicking a little bit and just hoping that what we saw from Russell Wilson in Denver is what we see from him in Pittsburgh, and Justin Fields does start, at least at some point. So I'll take it. You think Russell Wilson is out there week 1?
Absolutely.
I think I'm with you as of right now. I mean, I'm still a ceiling guy. I wouldn't be surprised if he, impresses Arthur Smith throughout this process, but I think Russell Wilson will be starting week 1. Does your answer change for week 8, week 10?
I'm going to go ahead and say that I think that Pittsburgh takes a step forward in terms of like how they are as a team this year with Russell Wilson. I don't think Russell Wilson's going to be great, but I think Russell Wilson is a huge improvement from the quarterbacks that they had last year on the roster. And I think there's plenty of talent on the defensive side of the ball. I think they're going to get conservative with the rushing attack. And I think that George Pickens is going to have a solid year. I realize the volume won't be great for George Pickens, but I think he's going to do well. But this is an organization that knows what they're doing. It's a difficult division. They're going to play conservative. Their offense is not going to have too many guys we want in our lineups on Sunday for fantasy, but I do think they're going to win their fair share of games. And I don't see them benching Russell Wilson unless like the wheels fall off. And I think at worst, they're a team that's like a 500 team that's kind of like fighting for a playoff spot. Tomlin's not the kind of guy that wants to rebuild or, hey, I'm going to take a look at what Justin Fields can do for us because let's see if maybe he's something we want to look at long term. Mike Tomlin wants to win every single game. He's one of the coaches that never really rebuilds. And their offseason moves this offseason are kind of telling you that. If it was a true rebuild for Pittsburgh, I believe that they would be looking at some of these secondary quarterbacks in the NFL draft, a guy like a Bo Nix, a guy like a Michael Penix, who are not perfect, going in that direction. Instead, that they go with Russell Wilson and Justin Fields, and they improve their quarterback room with 2 guys that are not really great, but are better than what they had on the roster.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's great news for the Steelers. I know Brittany is probably watching right now. Shout out Brittany. She does a lot of our thumbnails. She's a big Steelers fan. I know that she was celebrating all weekend for Justin Fields just coming and Russell Wilson being there as well. I mean, this is a team that made the playoffs with Mason Rudolph, made the playoffs with the shell of Ben Roethlisberger. I think that, in Pittsburgh, they're pretty excited about this quarterback room. And I think Arthur Smith, say what you will about him as a head coach, he's a good offensive coordinator, and some people just need to stay coordinators. He made a hell of a lot of money for Ryan Tannehill, a hell of a lot of, well, maybe not money, but we saw production from Marcus Mariota. Now he's bouncing around teams still. We saw points from Desmond Ridder and Taylor Heineke when they were out there in Atlanta last season. Like, he makes his quarterbacks productive for fantasy football. Even with the ridiculous amount of turnovers that we saw from Desmond Ridder last year. So I think we can expect good things from Russell Wilson. And if Justin Fields sees the field, I think we can see some good things from him as well. And maybe I'm just still a bit too much of a Justin Fields defender. The fantasy plumber out here is saying it's a disservice to my fans to even start this narrative and to sell Justin Fields. Are you there? Are you selling Justin Fields at this low of a market?
It depends on how deep my league is. But yeah, if somebody's willing to pay me top 30 quarterback prices for Justin Fields, then I'm absolutely taking it. At the end of the day, the NFL told you what he's worth.
Mhm.
It's hard to see guys completely bounce back from this. There's the one narrative that was pointed out was Baker Mayfield was at one point traded for very cheap as well.
Mhm.
He sort of bounced back his value, but at the end of the day, it's apples and oranges. Baker Mayfield was a number 1 overall pick. Those kind of guys get a lot more opportunities, and Baker Mayfield doesn't have some of those issues that Justin Fields has been having. So there's really no precedent for a guy bouncing back from being traded early in his career and being traded from being a first-round pick for then getting a sixth-round pick and then just turning it around and flipping his value. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah, I'm just someone that's such a big believer in situation meaning so much for an NFL player, especially a young player. And for Justin Fields in particular, he was drafted to a Bears team with a terrible coaching staff, terrible offensive coordinator, no weapons, no offensive line. Then the next year, they bring in a head coach that's defensive minded, and he has to use Luke Getsy, and then that doesn't work. They bring in another offensive coordinator that still doesn't work. And last season, he finally gets a weapon in DJ Moore, and we see his best season as a passer in only 13 games. He set his new season record for passing yards, and he was still top 10 in pressure completion percentage, deep ball accuracy, deep ball catchable pass rate, and had a 300-yard 4-pass touchdown game against Denver last season. I personally think he has shown enough in terms of progression, getting better year in, year out with a terrible supporting cast, terrible coaching, terrible offensive line. And I think that him landing in Pittsburgh is a really good spot for him. If anyone can fix issues, it's going to be Mike Tomlin. If anyone can put his quarterback in a situation where he doesn't have to play Superman like he was in Chicago, that's Arthur Smith. And I think that he will fit well in that system if given the opportunity. So I think I'm holding tight onto Justin Fields. I think I'm holding tight.
The market valued Luke Getsy better than it did Justin Fields.
I mean, the market valued Kenny Pickett more than it valued Justin Fields.
And that one's a little wild to me as well. That's sort of the new Philadelphia model is you get that former highly drafted quarterback, a former first-round pick, to come over as a backup. It's kind of cool. It's like predictive. Marcus Mariota, now Kenny Pickett. It's kind of a cool trend.
It is. It's interesting. I will say the one thing I just want to say before we move on is that Russell Wilson starting is just, I don't want to put too much stock into how much the team is invested in him. We have to remember he's on a vet minimum contract. And we have to remember that the Steelers punter is making more money than Russell Wilson in terms of the salary cap this year. So I really think at some point by the end of the season, Justin Fields will be starting. Ended the season last year with the Bears 4-2, beat the Lions, the NFC Championship Lions. I think something's there. I still like the ceiling, and I can't move away from him. Am I wrong for that? Or am I just going to have to, have egg on my face next year?
I mean, it's a little hope, Jason, based on the trade that just went down. But hey, man, hold tight.
Diamond hands on Justin Fields from your boy, Jason. I am totally high on Hopium. I've bought too many Justin Fields rookie cards, and I've got him on my trade gods team. I'm just stuck here. I'm just stuck. And speaking of stuck, DeAndre Hopkins is pretty much stuck in Tennessee, along with a brand new wide receiver teammate, Calvin Ridley. What are your thoughts on this team, on Calvin Ridley first, but just in general, this landing spot for Ridley, and we'll go forward.
The Ridley signing, a lot of people judge these signings with anger over the amount of money spent. It's not our money. It reminds me a little bit about when Christian Kirk signed with Jacksonville, and all these people were furious about what Jacksonville gave Christian Kirk. At the end of the day, Tennessee is showing us that they are putting themselves in a position to give Will Levis a chance, but even more so than Will Levis, they're changing stylistically as an organization. They hire Callahan from Cincinnati. Cincinnati finished top 10 in pass attempts. I believe top 8 for 2 straight seasons. They're going to modernize what they do. You bring up Arthur Smith. It's been a sort of a run of Arthur Smith-like coordinators in Tennessee. Really, really leaned on the running game. Were quite limited with what they could do with Ryan Tannehill, but they won games running the ball with Derrick Henry. He was the focal point of the offense. back-to-back seasons, Tennessee has had the leading Derrick Henry's led the league in rushing attempts.
Right.
Now they've gotten away from Henry. They're going to have a two-headed backfield of Tony Pollard and Tyjae Spears, two players who are very different from Derrick Henry and can both catch the football.
Mm-hmm.
Then they go out and they sign Calvin Ridley for this enormous contract. This is a team that wants to pass now. This is a team that wants to sort of modernize what they're doing, and they're leaning into it. So I think it's great. I think that in terms of like building a new identity, they're pushing the chips in. They also have a top 10 pick where they can take an offensive tackle, or if they want to just keep going with it, take a wide receiver. So at the end of the day, is it a loss for DeAndre Hopkins? I think so, because you don't give Calvin Ridley that sort of money for him to be like a wide receiver 2 to D-Hops, or even really it's not like a 1B type money. So at the end of the day, I think D-Hops played really, really well last year. The market was already sort of valuing him as a high-end wide receiver 3 on Underdog. So the market was not like, it's not like tanking his value from like wide receiver 2 land down to wide receiver 3 land. Like he was already there. But last year he went over 1,000 receiving yards, went over 70 receptions. I look at the red zone targets though, Jason, like DeAndre Hopkins was a big part of what Tennessee did last year in the red zone. He had over 15 red zone targets. Calvin Ridley had 25 red zone targets last year. So this definitely limits the ceiling of DeAndre Hopkins. Hopkins is a really, really good player, but we anticipate the passing volume to go up, but the efficiency is not going to be there with like the elite offenses. So D-Hop's taking a step back in targets, having another strong receiver across from him. It's not ideal for D-Hops next year. I think next year he's a flex for you. Yeah. He's still a valuable player to have on your roster, because if I'm in a bind, I can start him. But you're talking about a guy that's going to be like 32 years old, and he's, or maybe not quite 32, but he's up there, 31, I believe. Yep. And it's not great. It's not great for D-Hops.
Yeah, I think that you can't get rid of him at this point, and I would say that he's probably still going to perform right around where you're drafting or trading for him, so it's not a total loss. And I do think we'll see spike weeks. The saving grace for both him and Ridley is that this AFC South, I mean, it's got the Texans, it's got the Colts if Anthony Richardson can stay healthy, and it's got the Jaguars, who had a little bit of a down year next year, but investing in that offense and the offensive line in particular should help. So, I mean, those games are going to be nice for both wide receivers. So that'll be good. And I think we'll still see some D-Hop weeks, but I do think Calvin Ridley, definitely the more consistent wide receiver in this offense. We'll see some spike weeks from D-Hop and probably some bad weeks from him as well. Whereas Ridley probably still finishes right around the 10 to 13 points per game pretty easily. The big winner here, you said it, it's Will Levis. I mean, they are going to have him pass the ball a ton, whether it's to these two wide receivers or the two running backs that are basically the same guy with different ages in that backfield, just catching the ball a ton, hyper efficient, great elusive running backs. I'm excited about what this offense will look like next season. You mentioned Brian Callahan. I mean, he did a lot with Joe Mixon and Chase Brown last season, and really in his entire career using those running backs, using multiple wide receivers. I'm excited to see what this offense looks like next season. And I think that you can find value in all of the players, really. Like, would you still be drafting DeAndre Hopkins at his ADP, or are you just staying away?
For Underdog, I've actually liked Tennessee as a secondary stack, because Will Levis is still pretty cheap, and Ridley's come up a little bit, but he's still not crazy expensive. And Tyjae Spears has now dropped to like the 10th round. So I'm still drafting D-Hops. In terms of Dynasty, I don't have much D-Hops, but like you said, the teams that still have D-Hops are most likely contenders, and it's a sunk cost at this point. If you're in rebuilding mode and you're still holding DeAndre Hopkins, why? That's just was poor process on your part. But he's a sunk cost guy in Dynasty. Right now, if you sold him off for like a 3rd round pick, your chances of returning value on that are very slim. Whereas D-Hops, you know you're going to get like at the worst case scenario, I think he's a wide receiver 4 next year, like you said, with spike weeks. There's a chance that they pass so much, and that they de-emphasize the running back position, like, you know, in terms of carries. You bring up 2 running backs who can catch the ball or a little more dynamic. I think there's a good chance that both of those guys are far less than 200 carry guys, and they're used in the passing game. Whereas both wide receivers, you could get like a wide receiver 3 year from D-Hops and a wide receiver 2 year from Ridley. I think That's the kind of the goal.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that this is a great budget offense to just target around, especially if you're contending. I think you can get all of these people. Tony Pollard in particular, I mean, really, really cheap for what he can bring next year. I think that that'd be a really fun backfield duo to have. I think both of those guys are going to eat next year. And yeah, like I said, excited to see this offense. Another offense that's going to be exciting to see is that Chicago Bears offense. Keenan Allen traded for a 4th-round pick, so worth more than a potential franchise quarterback in Justin Fields. At his age, great production, best career year last season. And, you know, a 4th-round pick, I mean, that's more than Jerry Jeudy was traded for, more than Amari Cooper was traded for in his time. I mean, to be 31 years old and commanding that much is pretty impressive. Really good wide receiver. Him or DJ Moore, though?
Oh, DJ Moore.
Okay.
I'm going to go with the younger player who played, you know, exceptionally well his first year there. I really liked Keenan Allen there, but Keenan Allen I think was a perfect fit with like Justin Herbert and what they were doing in LA. You know, he was certainly leaned on by Kellen Moore last year. I will bet on the younger player who took a big step forward in DJ Moore. That being said, I think both of them have good years. I think Caleb Williams has an outside chance of breaking the Bears. That this could have been the hot take for the end of the show. The record for touchdown passes for the Chicago Bears is 29. It's a huge bar to climb for a rookie, but it's not like out of nowhere bar to climb for a guy like Caleb Williams. And with DJ Moore, with Keenan Allen, with the depth they have at running back, with Cole Kmet, and again, we're talking about they also have the 9th overall pick, so they can either choose to draft another receiver, and why not just lean into it, or draft an offensive lineman and protect Caleb Williams even more. I think he's got a shot to break that record. So I really love the Keenan Allen acquisition. You could make an argument that Caleb Williams has a better situation than any former number 1 overall pick at the quarterback spot. It's hard to think of somebody who fell into a better situation in terms of the weapons around them. Mm-hmm. And you brought up how the Bears closed the season well last year. Their defense was playing lights out to end last season. They took big steps forward. The Bears have a shot to win that division, I think, in year 1 for Caleb.
Wow, that would be wild.
Yeah,
that's all going to come down.
Obviously, Detroit's the big favorite, but I think Chicago is going to win a lot of games in Caleb Williams' first season.
Yeah, I think we could see all 3 of those teams in the play, or not all, the Packers, the Bears, and the Lions.
Absolutely.
It's a really, really good division. I think it's going to be fun. I would definitely be taking some shots on Caleb Williams and best ball. This is just a great wide receiver duo. Matty Kiwoom said it's quarterback heaven. I mean, it's really, really special. You don't often. Caleb better be everything.
Yeah, he is. Gucci finesse in the chat. Shout out. But Caleb Williams is everything that is promised. He's awesome.
Yeah, I think, and to answer your maybe 101, I think maybe Andrew Luck, maybe in terms of supporting cast, but I don't really remember if the Colts had that much around him or if it was just that Peyton Manning had just left and it was just like kind of a good team. I don't remember enough, but either way, you don't often get a DJ Moore and Keenan Allen to throw to, as well as Cole Kmet and DeAndre Swift. He's excited to have that around him. I will give my take before we move on. I think Keenan Allen gets more receptions than DJ Moore, but DJ Moore gets more yards and touchdowns. I will be taking DJ Moore in fantasy next year. But like you said, both are going to be viable options for you and probably not worth moving on from Keenan Allen. I feel like with his age and Dynasty, you just got to ride till the wheels come off. So we'll move on to the next wide receiver signing. And I'm not even really going to ask you to give much input on this, but KJ Osborne was signed to the Patriots. I mostly just want to ask, what are your thoughts on the Patriots offense as a whole? They've now invested in Antonio Gibson. They're bringing back Hunter Henry. They're probably going to be drafting Jaden Daniels. And to me, Gerard Mayo seems like a really good fit. It seems like the culture is kind of shifting there, and he's very exciting and bringing some energy to this team that is much needed. What are your viewpoints on this Patriots offense now, assuming they do get Jaden Daniels?
I mean, skill position player-wise, they're pretty bottom of the barrel right now. The wide receivers on the roster, there's nothing to be inspired by. Hunter Henry, I think, was fine value bringing him back. He is what he is. And I like the Antonio Gibson signing because I think Gibson adds another pass catcher out of the backfield. Right. And I think they're going to have to lean on Stevenson and Gibson based on the receivers there. DeMario Douglas is a low-key winner so far to this offseason for New England because I think he did flash as a rookie. That being said, he's not a guy that's gonna do a whole lot next year, but I do think that he can be a winner in the slot for them. I'm still into Jaden Daniels if they draft him, but I don't think they're going to draft Jaden Daniels. I think that Jaden Daniels will be drafted second overall to Washington. And I think New England is going to be in a spot with a potential trade down. I think New England and Arizona kind of make sense for the Minnesota trade up more so, but I think Washington's pretty set. I don't think they're moving off of Daniels. And I think that Chicago, the 1-2 is pretty set in my eyes. A lot of the books are kind of showing Jaden Daniels like minus 150, that level to be going second overall.
Yeah, and I know that there have been reports that the Patriots don't really want Drake May. Now, granted, you hear that every offseason, so it's hard to put too much stock into that. But, I really wanted them to draft Marvin Harrison and trade for Justin Fields. I thought that would have been really, really fun and a good way to try to get a franchise quarterback at least. But it seems that, as we've talked about, the NFL does not view Justin Fields as a starting quarterback at all.
You might be onto something, though, Jason, because I don't think that's out of the cards. If they don't get a Godfather offer and they don't like Drake May and they don't value JJ McCarthy at the 103, then I think there's a chance that New England simply takes Marvin Harrison Jr. And I think the initial reaction would be, this is awful. Marvin Harrison Jr. ends up on a bad offense. But at the end of the day, we just listed KJ Osborne, Kendrick Bourne, Hunter Henry, Demario Douglas, and then Ramondre Stevenson and Antonio Gibson. Yeah. Marvin Harrison Jr. with Jacoby Brissett next year in New England could have 150 targets as a rookie. 150 targets. And even if the quarterback play is mediocre, 150 targets for a player of that talent is not the worst outcome I can imagine. I think a lot of people really want to see Marvin Harrison Jr. in Arizona or in Los Angeles. And I understand, like, him ending up with Kyler Murray, Justin Herbert, that's something we can get super excited about. But I'm not like, it's not a sinking ship if he lands in an offense where there is nobody preventing him from being their wide receiver one off the top and a really highly targeted one.
Yeah, I mean, we saw last year, I know it was a very, very small sample size, but Jacoby Brissett, especially to Terry McLaurin, who actually would profile fairly similarly to a Marvin Harrison Jr., I mean, that was electric. He had like 2 touchdowns and 2 drives. Then the next game he just came in and was just, I mean, it was pass after pass after pass to Terry McLaurin. And there was actually some value there. So, I mean, and especially with this bad of a team, more than likely, they're going to be passing a lot. So I definitely wouldn't be upset about that landing spot. And it would kind of get the monkey off the back for the Patriots. They've been trying so hard to get the wide receiver. And that's a really great way for Gerard Mayo and just the new everything within that organization to start anew. And I'm sure Robert Kraft, in all his years being the owner of the Patriots, we had the whole rivalry against the Colts for years, watching Marvin Harrison Sr. and now having the chance to get the junior on the team. I'm sure they're definitely thinking about it. I like that a lot. I will say, Theo, this was an on-the-spot intervention for me. Can you please, God, tell me to quit Tyquan Thornton?
Yeah, quit Tyquan Thornton, Jason. I mean, even in best ball, just quit him. Just quit him.
I can't do it.
It's not happening.
I know. It's like, oh, but he's so fast, and there's no other field stretcher on the Patriots.
I mean, our friend, there was a point in time where Dan Williamson and I, shout out to Dan Williamson, had so much Tyquan Thornton in Dynasty because he was so cheap in these FFPC leagues. FFPC rookie drafts go like 7 rounds. Yeah. And Tyquan Thornton was a 2nd round pick, but he was dropping to like the 6th round, and we just took him like in like 80% of our leagues. Yeah. And we felt so smart for about 2 weeks. And then it fell apart. So yeah, pour one out for Tyquan Thornton shares. Another wasted wide receiver pick from New England. We can go back and look through that draft and find about 5 or 6 guys that they would love to trade for Tyquan Thornton right now, easily.
Right. No, it's really sad. Hey, he had that 1-2 touchdown game though his rookie season.
It was electric. The manufactured. I remember writing about him in a waiver wire column, and I remember putting a sizable fab bid on him in a couple of high stakes leagues where I was like, this is it. Tyquan Thornton, this is their manufactured touch guy. Yep. He's getting like reverses. I think he scored on a screen pass.
Yep.
And he scored on a reverse, and they were both like 40-yard touchdowns in that one game. And then that's it. There you go.
Thank you for that. I'll move on from my type 1 Thorntons. Just have to. So we'll move on, Theo. This is now into my favorite discussions of having guests. As the audience knows, we've gone through the news now. Now it's time for the guests to give their takes on stuff I've been talking way too much on. Free agency, draft, hot takes. You get enough of it from Jason. Let's have Theo have the floor. Give me 3 of your favorite free agency signings from the past few weeks.
Well, 3 of my favorite signings are guys that are going to be at the top. I'm not going to get too cute on this one. They're pretty chalky, but it's Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley goes to the best offense that he's ever played in. I think there's certain people kind of poking holes and saying, it limits the target total that Saquon could have this season. I agree with that. And also the fact is Jalen Hurts can be a touchdown vulture on certain drives of Saquon Barkley. You get deep in the red zone, you think you're going to get a Saquon touchdown for your fantasy team. Jalen Hurts runs in the end zone instead. I get that. But at the end of the day, with the quality of this offense, the very strong offensive line, the weapons they have at receiver, the Kellen Moore offense, I think that there's scenarios where Saquon Barkley he's had back-to-back seasons with double-digit rushing touchdowns. I think this year he could take that up to 15 based on the quality of the offense. You also have what's going to be really fun is Saquon Barkley Revenge Tour. We love revenge games. You got Tiki Barber talking trash. I think Saquon Barkley against the Giants for fantasy managers is going to be must-see TV. Yes. And I actually think it's one of these rare player signs elsewhere. The Giants crowd is not going to boo Saquon Barkley. They're going to cheer for Saquon. Is another prediction I have. I think that he'll be welcomed home because he was a beloved player in that organization. Saquon in Philly is about as fun as it gets. It's one of the biggest free agent running back signings of all time. And then I'll stick at the running back position. Another player who I think landed extremely well is Josh Jacobs. I think it's very telling that Green Bay moves off of Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones had back-to-back 100-yard games. He was dominant in the NFL playoffs. But Green Bay looks at their offense, and they have a chance to get younger with the 26-year-old Jacobs. And now you have Josh Jacobs going to an organization that I think will target him a little bit more out of the backfield. So Jacobs had those back-to-back 50-catch seasons, which were extremely good for him in Vegas. And then last year, the targets went down a little bit. When Antonio Pierce took over, they really, really ran the ball. I think Jacobs is going to be a little bit more of a two-way threat than some people think. It's a very young offense. Green Bay next year will have all of these wide receivers in their second and third seasons in the league. Both their tight ends will be second-year players. Jordan Love is a player they obviously really believe in, gave us top 5 production last year. Now he gets a player in Jacobs that can kind of be the identity of the offense. So I think it makes the whole pie larger in Green Bay. I think Jacobs lands really, really well. He's never finished lower than RB 18 in points per game in PPR ever. I think there's a chance that he's back in the RB1 line this year. I would actually bet on that. I think Jacobs will be somewhere in the top 10 for PPR scoring at the running back spot. And then Kirk Cousins, because what does Kirk Cousins do? Kirk Cousins opens things up for Kyle Pitts, opens things up for Drake London. They go ahead and they sign Darnell Mooney, and Bijan Robinson is going to take a massive step forward in year 2. The Atlanta offense is going to be one of the most improved offenses in football. Kirk Cousins, it's not so much that we want to start Kirk Cousins. He's always sort of limited because he doesn't have the rushing profile. He could finish as a QB1, but not really a purgatory type. But what he does for his teammates, Kirk Cousins, when you think of Adam Thielen, you think of Justin Jefferson, you think of Jordan Addison, you think of Stephon Diggs. There's been continual wide receivers having production. And then you think of TJ Hawkinson recently, Jordan Reed early in Kirk Cousins' career. The tight ends have also thrived alongside him. So he elevates the players around him as a quarterback. Now we have young players who all have a chance to take big step forward with Kirk Cousins. I think that those 3, as chalky as they are, they're chalky for a reason, really good ones. I also think that the Hollywood Brown signing is fun because I think it's going to open things up for Kansas City a little bit more. I think that it frees Rashee Rice a little bit, and it makes Patrick Mahomes a little bit more appealing for fantasy. I think Hollywood is definitely an upgrade over some of the wide receivers they were using last season.
Oh, yeah, 100%. If I like Tyquan Thornton, I love myself some Marquise Brown, and I love that landing spot for him. And I love all the ones you mentioned. I mean, Josh Jacobs is literally A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones in mind, body, and soul. So they just get one guy. I know A.J. Dillon's still there, but I really do think it's going to run from Josh Jacobs. And we're just a year removed from Josh Jacobs having over 2,000 all-purpose yards, with 400 of that coming from the receiving. And then Saquon. I mean, the Eagles had over 20 rushing touchdowns. If you include Jalen Hurts last year, there's a ton to go around. I don't think they'll be able to push as much without Jason Kelce. They'll still try it, but I really do think that with Saquon, especially how much they invested in him, they're going to do that a little bit less and give the ball more to Saquon. 91 targets to the running back position last year, which is still a lot. So I think I love all the ones you mentioned. And Kirk Cousins, I will say, admittedly, I'm taking the wait and see. As someone here in Atlanta, it just feels too good to be true. I've seen way too many good things go wrong in Atlanta, so I can't get quite fully on board. But if it works, it works. It's going to be spectacular. And that Atlanta offense, if Kirk Cousins stays healthy, I mean, that's a division winner, playoff pushing team that you can get very, very excited about, at least on the offensive side of the ball. So Theo, give me a rookie flag plant. You're doing some great rookie content right now. Give me that flag plant.
I think right now in single QB leagues, getting to that 103 is going to be massive for you. Mm-hmm. If you can trade the one and the two are already priced out. Rome Odunze, I think, is a dynasty wide receiver 1 right away. And I think the market is already valuing Marvin Harrison Jr. in that regard and valuing Malik Neighbors in that regard. But Rome Odunze had an unbelievable combine. He scored more fantasy points than any other wide receiver last year in college. Incredible production, incredible size, and he's going to be valued in the NFL about the same as Marvin Harrison Jr. and Malik Neighbors. And then people are going to say, pump the brakes on that one. But he's going to be a top 10 pick in the NFL draft. He's going to be drafted about 5 spots behind Marvin Harrison Jr., and he's got a shot to jump Malik Neighbors in the NFL draft. So Rome Odunze is one I really, really want. Brock Bowers, I tell anybody that I think he's a top 3 dynasty tight end right from the start. So these are not like surprise kind of guys, but these are 2 players that I'm very much into. And then my other kind of bold take on this rookie class is the running back hate has gone too far. 100%. I think there's going to be a lot of running back utility out of this class. I think if you're a dynasty manager and you need a couple of running backs, having those picks at the 1-2 turn in Superflex and having any of those second round picks in Superflex, you're going to have exposure to some running backs that can help us. We don't have a Jahmyr Gibbs, a Breece Hall, or a Bijan Robinson in this class. Make no mistakes about that. But at the end of the day, there's a number of players that I think could have multiple RB2 seasons. Trey Benson's my RB1 right now, but I want to have multiple exposure to some of these running backs. Because I think once these narratives start, it creates potential value for us in Dynasty.
Oh, 100%. That was my one big takeaway from the Senior Bowl, is how just undervalued this running back class is. Every single guy there looked like someone. Yeah. Then you see it at the combine too. I mean, everyone pretty much tests well, like everyone around the 4.5 or under that you care about. I mean, just a really, really good running back class. And especially with the running back market, teams moving away from the bell cow and taking these shots late, I really do think we're going to see some great backfield duos next year.
And Will Shipley last week, Jason. Not enough people are talking about like Will Shipley. Will Shipley's going to be sitting there for you in your rookie draft at the end of the second round. Mm-hmm. And he's going to end up being drafted, I think, in the 3rd or 4th round in the NFL draft. His pro day at Clemson was ridiculous. And it's a guy who catches a lot of passes. Like, nobody's talking about that pro day because people are so like closed off on this rookie running back class now. They're so excited about the wide receivers, as they should be. The quarterback position, you've 4 quarterbacks in this class that are better than any quarterback in the 2025 class. So to me, it's like the running back spot is going to create a ton of value. There's a few other guys I really like in this rookie class as well, but I think those are kind of the flag plant guys for me. Get your exposure to some of these rookie running backs. It's cheap, and these guys are going to have some productive seasons in fantasy.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. I'm also with you that Rome Odunze might jump Neighbors. I think he actually will, and I think he goes to the Chargers. I think that he's the replacement. I know this is silly, but I think Jim Harbaugh scouting for that national championship saw a lot in Rome Odunze. So I think it's either that, or maybe he tries to trade up to get Marvin Harrison Jr., watching him beat up on his Wolverines, be the only guy to get 100 receiving yards against him last season. I think it's either one of those. I don't think the Chargers are in on the neighbors discussion, to be completely honest with you. So I'm with you there. I like that a lot. I know Matty Kiwoom, especially going to the combine and seeing him compete, be the last guy out on the field. I know he's heavily sold on Odunze, even competing with Marvin Harrison Jr. for that one spot. So I really like the top end as well. And I'm with you in trying to trade for that pick. Let me ask you a personal question. It popped up. You're the Jahmyr Gibbs guy, and I actually have an offer on the table right now. I've been saying no, but it's the 104 in a super flex league for Jahmyr Gibbs straight up. He also has the 103. So I keep countering, trying to just get the 103. The 104 is not enough for me. What do you think about that?
I'm leaning Jahmyr Gibbs in that one. Again, I don't know your quarterback situation though, Jason. Is this your Justin Fields team?
Justin Fields, Bryce Young, Justin Fields, Bryce Young, Kenny Pickett.
Yeah. I think you actually need to make that move. And you don't need I would try to get more than the 104. Yeah. I would try to get something else on top, even if it's a second rounder on top or something like that, because as much as I love Jahmyr Gibbs, the shelf life for a lot of these, and Jahmyr Gibbs profiles as a guy who's going to keep a really long shelf life at the running back spot because he's so talented catching the football. But the windows for these running backs, even the running backs that are exceptionally good dynasty assets, they can sometimes close. Think about Todd Gurley at his peak, how quickly the decline happened. Jonathan Taylor, when after year 2, you could have gotten the 101 in any Superflex league, and he was as the number 1 pick in dynasty startups. Now I'm in a Superflex dynasty startup, and he's not being selected in the top 3 rounds. So these things change.
Yeah. I want the 103. That's what I keep bugging him for, because I don't want the player to fall to me. I want to take my choice between like Drake May or Jaden Daniels. Really, I don't like. Yeah. But either way, we'll see.
And that being said, even like the 103, if for whatever reason your league goes Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Marvin Harrison Jr. versus Jahmyr Gibbs in Dynasty, I'm going Marvin Harrison Jr. there, the generational wide receiver who's going to hold value for longer than any running back that's currently valued in the top 5, including Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs, Breece Hall, Devon A-Chain. There's no player that would be worth more than Marvin Harrison Jr. at the running back spot. It's just not the way I play Dynasty.
Yeah, no, and I'm with you. I would take MSJ over Gibbs too. Especially my running back room is solid. That's why I'm trying to move Gibbs. I have him and ETN on the block right now. And actually, the guy I'm trading, Big Time Timmy Jim, says he doesn't know about the extra. So I don't know. Theo's telling me I need to get a little bit more.
Big Time Timmy Jim. Send Jason the 103 right now, and you could have a first time in Wake and Take history, an accepted trade right on Wake and Take. Jason gets his 103. Not for sale.
He says 103 not for sale until the draft day. But let's just go ahead and do it, man. Come on, lock it in.
Come on, Big Time Jimmy. Big Time Timmy Jim.
All right, man. Thank you so much for all of that. As I like to end these shows, before I have you, give your usual, just what you're working on, all that fun stuff. Give me your hot take for next season.
I'll continue my it's not, I don't think it's even really a hot take at this point. Drake London finishes as a top 10 wide receiver in PPR scoring. I think Drake London takes that big step forward. He's still only 22 and a half years old. He is a full year younger than Garrett Wilson. He is younger than Xavier Legette. He's younger than Ricky Pearsall. He's younger than a lot of these wide receivers that get drafted in like the second round of the NFL draft. You've had 2 frustrating years from Drake London. And I think this year he goes with let's call it 145 targets, number 1 option in what should be a good offense, multiple indoor games. And even if Kirk Cousins takes a step back, this is still a player that's continually elevated his top target. And Drake London is that. It's Drake London, top 10 wide receiver. I took him over Chris Olave and over Roma Dunze. Those 2 guys were staring at me in the face in a dynasty startup, and I took Drake London over both of those guys. So I'm really digging my heels in on Drake London. I think he's a great player to add in best ball. I think he's a great player to draft in early redraft leagues. And Alan Soslowski thinks he's going to steam up in PPR leagues to the early second round and redraft by the end of the summer. I think the the wheels will keep churning. Right now, you get a pretty decent value on him in best ball.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. I mean, think about it this way. He's had over 1,200 air yards with Marcus Mariota and Desmond Ridder throwing him the ball the last 2 seasons and still hasn't crossed that 1,000-yard threshold. I think he easily does that this year. It's just going to come down to the touchdowns. How many goes to Bijan? How many goes to Pitts? But with his profile, he's probably going to be a red zone threat. So I'm expecting big things from London. And, of course, the rest of the Falcons offense if Kirk Cousins can stay healthy.
Jason, quick comment in the chat. People want you to clarify. Did you take Bryce Young over CJ Stroud and Anthony Richardson in this draft?
I actually traded for Bryce Young. Very bad trade. It was week 3. I had traded literally nothing for Brock Purdy over the offseason. So I traded Brock Purdy for Bryce Young and Jonathan Mingo or something like that, just to have fun. Because at the time I had Justin Fields and Kenny Pickett was starting. I was like, I've already made bank on Brock Purdy. I'm going to try to take a chance on this Bryce Young guy who I'd never believed in. Like I've always thought was going to be a bust. But, sometimes just it was like week 2, week 3, he was sucking. That was never going to be possible. I regret it wholeheartedly. But it is what it is. And that's why we like Dynasty. You get to keep workshopping your squad. And, I still ended up in the playoffs and everything, even with that terrible quarterback room. So it is what it is.
You had to keep it real for the people right there, guys. Not Jason's proudest moment, but he's telling the truth. He's laying it on the line. Hit the like button.
It was, and it was, this was a thing that is in the Trade Gods Invitational League. It was right before Thursday Night Football, when the 49ers were playing, I think. And the only reason it was even on the table is they wanted to start Brock Purdy. So I was like, the time was ticking. I was out playing soccer with some friends. It came in and I was like, you know what? Let's have some fun. It's the Trade Gods League. I've got to trade. And I lost it. Totally lost it. It is what it is. Theo, thanks again so much for joining me. Go ahead and tell the people what you're working on. And namely, let's start hyping up this rookie guide.
Yeah, so we have the rookie guide that should be coming out right around April 1st. It's going to be very, very cool. Last year, I know you guys enjoyed the one that basically Cody did a lot of it himself. I have Cody Carpenter back this year. This rookie guide, you're going to have access to 5 rankings. You're going to have Cody Carpenter's rankings. You're going to have my rankings. You're going to have Jax Falcone of the Undroppables rankings, along with Chalk of the Undroppables. They're doing a combined one. You're also going to have John Lobb's rankings and Matty Kiwoom's rankings. We're going to do player write-ups. We're going to have draft strategy. It's going to be a really, really good one. In terms of people doing player write-ups, Josh Larkey, Ian Miller. We have Matt Kelly doing a player write-up. I have, again, all the people mentioned who are doing the rankings are going to be doing player write-ups. Seth Dewald, Jason is doing a couple of player write-ups. And Austin Abbott. It's very deep. Pretty much all of the Dynasty voices you hear. Oh, Memphis Young from the Dynasty Warzone. So we have a lot of our Dynasty voices all contributing on the player write-ups. And then you get 5 different player rankings with also a cumulative one, super flex, regular PPR, and then tight end premium rankings. We're going to cover them all. It's going to be a really, really good rookie guide. We're going to make some announcements for that shortly.
Definitely. So just go ahead and stay tuned for that, guys. Don't buy anyone else's rookie guide until ours comes out, because ours is the only one you'll need. Best in the business. Great value. Very excited to see the finished product. I'm very excited to get you my write-ups on JJ McCarthy and Theo Johnson by the end of this week. I think actually by like Wednesday or whatever is when we're aiming for. So it's coming, guys. It's going to be great. I know you're waiting for it. Get all the social media DMs. When's the rookie guide coming? Where's the rookie stuff? So it's coming. And it's going to be great.
It's coming. It's going to be good.
Theo, anything else before we sign on out of here?
No, Sonic Truth, we're doing a rookie mock draft tomorrow with the guys over at Fantasy Pros.
Yes.
It's Alan Soslowski, Cody, and I, along with Derek Brown, Pat Fitzmaurice, and Thor Nystrom. That's going to be tomorrow at 11 a.m. right after Wake and Take.
Nice. So I'll make sure to end my show right before 11.
There you
so
go.
You guys can hop over to that. Thanks again for joining me. Audience, before you leave, don't forget to hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe to Player Profiler. And don't forget to tune in Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern on the Player Profiler, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thanks again, guys. Have a magnificent Monday and a wonderful rest of your week. Peace.
From the Podfather to you, I deeply appreciate you tuning in. And many ask, what can I do? What can I do to help support the hosts, the research they do, the production costs? Go to playerprofiler.com, Dynasty Deluxe, World Famous Draft Kit, Rankings, DFS Dominator, and of course, data analysis. Subscribe to any one of those, and you support all of us and take Player Profiler to the moon.